There are some foods that bring comfort to the body and comfort to the soul. It just makes you want to say, wow, this is superfood. And what we're going to be making today is superfood, because we're going to be making 3 types of soup. Soup, 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 and each one of them are going to be super. So stick around for these fantastic recipes here on EWTN's Savoring Our Faith. Today's episode is all about soup, and so we're going to be making 3 recipes that I think will bring a lot of comfort to your family dinner table. First, we're going to be making a grilled broccoli cream soup. It'll also have some spinach for some fortification of some vitamins and some fiber, and it's going to be topped off with some cheddar cheese, some chives, and also a little bit of sour cream to give it a little bit more density and creaminess. We're also going to be making a gazpacho soup, which is a chilled tomato-based cucumber, all blended together, perfect for summers. But hey, if you even want to warm it up, it makes a nice little tomato soup as well. And then the final one is a family favorite. It is going to be an arroz caldo, which means a hot rice soup, but it's going to have some infusion of ginger as well as nice chicken chunks, which will have a little bit of onion and garlic to give it some extra flavor. So getting started, what I did is I've got my oven on broil, and I just simply put a little bit of salt and pepper on about 2.5 cups of broccoli florets, and I've got 2 pieces of garlic in here as well. And this is all going to just simply go right into the oven under broil until it starts to char up just a little bit, emitting some of its own water and juices, and that's going to get all blended up. I've got the gloves on. I got it from my dad's medical office because I'm going to actually be cutting up some chicken, and I want to make this super quick in terms of getting my hands cleaned as well. I'm going to trim this off a little bit of some of the excess fat. Super healthy food, as a matter of fact. When we got sick as kids, my mom always made this because somehow the warmth of it all, and I think the ginger has some healing properties as well. I'm not a physician, but I know my dad is one, and he always prescribed this. This is basically a chicken and rice dish that really, I would say, just brings a lot of comfort to people. So we've got this chicken breast, and I'm just going to cube them up so that they cook rather evenly, but they're going to actually sit and poach in some delicious broth, which you can make homemade, but I'm going super simple and just got store-bought broth for today's show. And what we have to do next is cut up some vegetables here. We've got, for the gazpacho, all of this is ready. We've got some shallots, we've got some ginger. Now, these recipes actually are rather simple. I'm going to be doing it all the same time, so it'll sound complex, but one thing at a time. As a matter of fact, I think that's what makes soup such a fantastic family meal. And yeah, you could just simply have soup as a meal, and I think that your family will enjoy it. One thing at a time, and I think that's what makes soups very unique. Basically, you basically add one ingredient at a time, and then you add water. Flavored water generally is going to be broth. So we've got some shallots just nicely minced. I'm going to do a little bit of garlic as well for the arroz caldo. I want to get this going quickly because the rice takes a little bit of time to cook. You know, whenever I have any type of soup dishes, I'm constantly reminded by that little story, maybe even a parable of the magic rock. I'm not sure if you remember it as a kid, but it was one of those stories that stuck out in my mind as just a great analogy of sharing faith. All right, for the ginger, create a base, basically trim off the peel, and I'm going to actually grate some of this ginger into the soup itself. Very fibrous, so you want to be careful with just cutting it up and throwing it in there. I might even just throw this piece in there and remove it at the end, but I'm just going to show it to you now what it does look like. So let's get some chives as well, minced up here very quickly. Basically doing a couple different levels of onion flavors. So chives and the shallots, which are just a little sweeter. The garlic is going to have a nice aromatic effect. All right, and I think that's good for right now. And we'll just mince up 1 or 2 garlic cloves very quickly. That story of that magic rock, I might change it around a little bit, but this is how I remember it, and if it's not true, it should be. But it's about a village that happened to have a visitor, a very strange visitor, and this strange visitor came in with a rock, and he came across some young boys, and he was looking at this rock, and he was amazed by it, and these boys were amazed by his amazement at the rock, and he basically said, you know, this is a magic rock. It makes magic soup. And these kids are like, what, are you crazy? It can't make some soup. And he said, sure it can. Just bring me some water. And so these kids get him a pot of water, and he throws the rock in it over the fire. Let's get some olive oil into this little pot right here. All right, I'll use the front burner instead. And let's get the chicken in here as well, seasoned up. If you notice, I switched knives because we want to make sure that we don't cross-contaminate. If you've got one cutting board with meat separated from that, which you're going to be using for the rest of the vegetables, getting this olive oil heated up because we want to get a nice little sear on this. And so these kids bring out this pot of water, and he throws the rock in it. And he says, just wait, this will create some delicious soup eventually. And these kids are waiting, and he starts thinking to himself out loud, you know what, it would really be wonderful if there was a little bit of meat in this soup. It just makes it taste all the more magical. And, you know, the kids are like, well, guess what? I just went hunting and I found some rabbit, so they put some rabbit in there. There were some visitors that came by, and they happened on this man, and they saw him. Hold on, let's give it a test to see. Yeah, that's hot enough. You can start to hear the sizzle, which means that this will be hot enough to sear. So let's just get this chicken breast in here. We're going to season this up with some salt and pepper. And these visitors come by and they say, what are you making there? And the guy says, we're making some magic soup, and we've got some rabbit in here to make it even better. And the people say, well, you know what will make it better is if you have a little bit of onions and vegetables in there. So guess what they did? They donated some of it. And they kept having more people come by, hearing just how fantastic this soup is going to be, adding their own little components to it. And eventually, it made a delicious soup. The rock wasn't magic at all. As a matter of fact, we don't believe in magic, we believe in faith. And faith means generosity is required as well. And therefore, it was the generosity of the people that made the soup so delicious. It was a meal for the entire village. And I think that's kind of what soup is like. There is no country or no culture that doesn't have its form of soup. And it literally is a just add water to whatever you have in there, and it kind of creates some real deliciousness. And what we're going to do now is just simply add the chives and the garlic, as well as the scallions. Don't worry, the chicken is not cooked yet, but it will be at the very end of this cooking process. Now I'm going to just shave some of this ginger into the combination. Nice, very savory, heartwarming kind of dish. So we're going to add about maybe a teaspoon of ginger. Notice I'm just grating it down, and you can see the fibers already just kind of kicking up. Perfect. Get that mixed up. Chicken is slightly browning. That's all I needed to do. Now I'm gonna add about a cup of rice. And I'm using some jasmine rice in here, so I'm just gonna add it right to the pot itself. Toast the rice just a little bit to help with that toasting, maybe a little bit more oil, just a little bit more. Mix that all together, and guess what happens next? Just add water, but flavored water, reinforced water, so to speak. I always consider soup kind of like theological food as well. Why? Because all of the foods are going to be immersed in water. And that word immersion is basically where we get our understanding of baptism. All right, here, let me just show you this, because you'll see that it'll start to brown a little bit. That's basically just the caramelizing from the chicken. Some of the rice is toasting, so it's taking on a little bit of color, and everyone thinks that it's being burned. And in a way it is, but in a way it's just really generating a lot of flavor. And to add to that flavor and to deglaze the pan, which means to just add the liquid so that it creates a glaze on the bottom of the pan, we'll just add some of this broth. And I'm gonna add just enough to cover this entire thing. And now I just let this simmer. It's gonna be a nice thicker soup. Philippine-inspired, mom-tested, kid-friendly. Add just a little bit more. Let that cook down. Okay, guess what? That is done. Let's see how our broccoli is grilling up. I can smell it, so I know that it's, oh yes, exactly what we wanted. Nice and toasted. And you're gonna think, oh my gosh, that's burned too. No, it's not. It's caramelizing, and it's letting some of the juices from the broccoli just kind of seep out. Here's where it gets really easy. I'm gonna add this to a pot. I'm gonna add some spinach to it. And then I'm basically gonna add some stock and some cream to this as well. You can't get any more simple. Eventually we're gonna have to blend it all up. You know what, I did season this up with some salt and pepper, but I'm also gonna use a little white pepper. Does this have a little bit of extra flavor? It's a different type of flavoring, so we're just gonna add some white pepper to this. It's smelling very much like home when I'm sick. All right, so let's reduce that heat so that we don't overcook the rice too quickly. Getting some broth into here. And we've already used that one. And now we're also going to add a little bit of cream. When I think of soup as just a one-pot wonder, you know, I think a family can just stand to just have one bowl of food. It's hearty enough and satisfying enough. So adding some cream here. We are going to season this. You know what, it's got a little bit of salt and pepper already that I put in, but I'm just gonna add a little bit more for the spinach, and we'll use some black pepper as well. And what I've got to do now is basically blend this all up and reheat it. This is gonna get a little loud because I'm using a hand blender here, but basically it's all going to just get blended all together so that it creates what I would call just a nice little creamy texture. All right, so this soup is basically done. Off to the side. Soup is one of those meals that just brings such comfort. It's warm, it's so satisfying. It's basically one meal in one bowl. And I know that it has great health benefits for people too. So if you know someone who is sick, why don't you bring them some superfood and bring them some hot, delicious soup? Now, gazpacho soup is a chilled soup. And I remember having it the first time, and it sounded so delicious, but I overlooked the word chilled on the menu. And then when the waiter brought it out and I started eating it, I told him, this soup is cold. And then he said, sir, it's the way it's supposed to be. Thank God I was only like 12 or 13 at the time, so being embarrassed comes naturally for a kid that age. All right, here we go. Cleaning off my knife a little bit. It's already just got some vegetables on it, so it's okay. I am going to now basically start prepping all of the vegetables to put into this gazpacho soup, and basically it's just going to get blended all together. So we've got onions, we've got some red pepper, and I'm only going to use, this much red onion, which will probably be about a quarter of a cup minced. And I'm going to help the blending of it all by actually just cutting it down so that it's not so difficult for the blender to chop up. Again, if you've got a big food processor, just throw it all in there. It can't get any simpler. Now I'm doing the onions first because I'm going to add some red wine vinegar to it. And the red wine vinegar will help with its acids to, I don't want to say cook, this is about 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, but it will help to remove some of the harshness from the onion itself. It's kind of a way of cooking it. Now we're going to add some red pepper. Let's put this off to the side, making myself a little bit more room. Super easy way to cut this red pepper. Just cut the top and the bottom, turn it over on the side, slide your knife around so that you remove also some of the seeds and the ribbing, because you don't want that necessarily. For this, you can just simply pop this off, chop this out just a little bit so that it's, again, easy for the blender to move through. There are few different types of recipes and versions of gazpacho. I'm making a real easy one with ingredients that you can definitely find around your house. And I'm using, instead of just simple tomato sauce, which some recipes use, I'm actually throwing in some tomato juice, because in that juice are a whole bunch of other different types of vegetables as well, like some celery. We've got in it also some other herbs. Now, with the tomatoes, however, what I'm going to do with the tomatoes is I'm going to remove a little bit of the seeds, because we don't want necessarily the seeds in here. So let me just take some of these stems out. If they're kind of, you want to have, when you're cooking this stuff, you want to have consistency. If there's like these woody pieces, just remove it. You know, when I think of foods and I mention how I think that they are very theological in nature, just removing some of the seeds out. Being immersion, it's basically just adding water to it. But the water that we use in cooking has got to be it's got to be fortified water. It means it's got to be more than just the H2O. Now granted, it is the most important ingredient when it comes to cooking. So we've got this all put together. What I've got to do now is add some oil to give it some creaminess without cream and some depth, as well as some, that's about a tablespoon, perfectly measured. As well as just some regular vegetable juice, which again has carrots, it has onions, it has celery, it has, goodness gracious, tomato juice, a lot of things in here. And I'm just going to add just enough so that I can start to see it, but not cover anything yet, because again, there's so much liquid and so much water in these vegetables already. I forgot my cucumber. And with the cucumber, I'm going to keep some of the, most people would use a peeler. I'm not. I'm just going to simply just run my knife down the base. I'm going to cut a couple pieces off to the side and leave it aside for garnish. There we go. So if you don't have a fancy peeler, you can just do that. Cut the top and the bottom off, create a nice base. I'm going to just use a couple of these slices for some garnish itself. Nice and thin pieces, perfect. And then with this, here's what we've got to do. You got to remove the seeds because it just doesn't create a pleasurable texture. So I'm just going to use a spoon around the sides here, and then I'm just going to scoop it out. If you don't want to go to waste and you want to use a seed, go ahead. It just doesn't blend all that well. And if you do want to use it and you want to try to blend it, you got to blend it for a really long time. I'm using a hand blender, which basically means I'm not going to blend it for a long time. All right. Cutting the cucumbers down, adding it all in there, mixing this around. One soup is already done. This one is almost done, and this one really takes nothing, except for a lot of blending. Culinary students will tell you that one of the most difficult things to make is soup because it requires not only the technicality of learning how to make boiled water into something delicious, it requires balance. And you know what we need to do is not only learn how to make delicious balanced soup, but bring some of that balance into our own lives. Not one thing more than the other, and more importantly, true balance means that we have a solid foundation, and that foundation is faith. That's definitely worth savoring. To warm up this cream of broccoli, I just basically have put it back on the fire. Remember, everything's already cooked. I'm just now warming it up so that when I add the cheese and the sour cream to it, it just makes it all the more delicious and smooth. You can see just how beautifully pureed that is now, getting that creamed up. The arroscaldo is definitely doing its thing. And I know that the rice is cooked because you can see it. It's basically expanded, and it has, for me, just enough wetness to make it a soup. So this is done. This would normally get chilled in the refrigerator for a couple of hours before you serve it, and that will allow all of the flavors to meld in. Again, the harshness of the red onion has been kind of tempered with the acids that come from the vinegar, and so to also help with it, we've got ourselves some cream as well. So let's get one soup up and running. Let's get the arroscaldo up first here. Nice and thick. A lot of rich flavors that come from the ginger, onions, some beautiful flecks of green from the chives. As a matter of fact, to make it even more special, just snap off some chives and put it there in the X shape. Now what we'll do is we will spoon the gazpacho. Here we go. It's kind of nice to use a clear bowl for the gazpacho so that people can see all of the beautiful colors that are in it. Yeah, perfect. Nice. You know, to give this a little bit of creaminess. You don't need to put this in here, but I'm going to, just because I think it's going to add just some depth to the flavors. As a matter of fact, I'll use a small little spoon and make a small little canal of the sour cream. Instead of a glob, we will make a nice little orb with it. Very nice. And then decorate it also with a little bit of this cucumber. And that's really beautiful. Now, the final soup that we're gonna be making for you all, wait, one more cucumber in there, perfect, is going to be this cream of broccoli, which I have just warmed up. It's a beautiful spinach or mint green color. And what I'm gonna do is just basically pour it in this bowl. And here's a little trick too. If you're pouring something, just put a little spoon next to it so that it doesn't splatter all over the place. Oh, that looks so good. Oh my gosh. Very fine. This is gonna take a little bit of sour cream as well. Even though there's already cream in it, put a little bit more, why not? Because you got a lot of vegetables in there and some great spinach. You know what I'm gonna do is also add a little bit of cheddar cheese to it. And I made some fresh croutons as well. And I basically just used some old bread, sauteed it in a little bit of olive oil or just regular oil, and some Italian herbs and spices. And you know what? We'll hit this with just a little bit of chives as well right on top, just for garnish purposes. Again, I always call soup superfoods simply because it's so healthy. It's like a one bowl wonder, really. And it brings a lot of comfort to the people who, you know, celebrate this type of food. Not only is it simple to make, it's really good for you, and it really can bring back a lot of super memories for your entire family. So we've got some healthy foods and some foods that bring back some memories that Mom and Dad gave me when I was sick. Just add water, the most important ingredient. And again, I call this type of food soup baptized, because basically it's all immersed in water. And guess what happens to us when water is poured into us? We become supernatural. We become filled with grace. And when you say a prayer over this food, it is no longer just food. It really is super. We'll see you next time on EWTN's Savoring Our Faith.